why do you say that desire cannot be taught?
Desire for success is different than desire, I think. Desire to be great, to be an artist, to be outstanding at what you do is very different than the desire for success. And I think look, there are people who are just inordinately ambitious right out of the chute. They just are. I don't think it can be taught. I think I've always said this, and I think it's true. I can't teach talent, we talked about. I can't teach desire, but what I really teach well, I think, is a strategy for the scene you're working on right now, for the project that's a part of, for your career and for your life. I don't want to get too life coachy about this, but it's kind of all the same. It's understanding that your innate talent and desire is just there or it's not. I mean, I have run across people who are very talented and don't have the fire in the belly to be successful. They don't care about it. They're perfectly willing to be just in the mix. I taught the first time I ever taught anything. This was at the Hawaii International Film Festival a long time ago. And it was a fantastic gig because you got to spend 2 weeks in Hawaii. And I taught a week-long workshop for actors. And there were a number of actors there who lived there and all that. And there was an older gentleman who was auditing. He wasn't part of the actual workshop, but we had people who were auditing and all that, just to sort of hang out and see it and observe it and all that. And at the end of the week, he came up to me with some questions. And he said, I was an actor. I said, oh yeah. I said, you were very familiar looking, so I probably have seen you. And yeah, he said, I was an actor and did some TV and a little bit of movies. And he was older and had retired. And he said, I just thought, if I can just make a living at this. He said, and that's all I ever did, was just make a living at it. And I took that to mean, this is what he meant, that he never sets his sights high enough. He was just satisfied being in the mix, just satisfied being on set, just satisfied getting that call that he got a call back. He didn't aim high enough. And if you aim up here, you might get here. But if you aim here, you're going to get there. You're going to get, so that desire, I don't know where it comes from. I mean, a lot of it's cultural. Depends on what culture you're from and whether it's a minority culture or, like in my case, I'm Jewish, and it was just always imbued in us that you got to be better than everybody because you're going to be judged harsher, in a more harsh way and all that. So I don't know, you learn on your daddy's knee, I guess.
What if we take the flip side, and that is someone who is maybe not that talented, but is incredibly ambitious, whether it's cultural or they want to show those folks back in high school or whatever it is. How do you reconcile that? Someone who keeps trying and banging their head against a wall, but it's just not there.
Well, how do they reconcile that? I don't know. I do think that talent is a commodity. Everybody at the professional level is talented enough to be in, The Rookie or 911 or some of these kind of B- network shows. I don't mean to insult anybody, but they're not the same as the streaming shows. There's much higher quality. So they're talented enough. And there are people who are what I call like mono-talents. They do one thing, but they do it really well, and it's commoditized, and they become a go-to person for that one thing. And you've seen people, we've all seen people, you go, oh, it's that same guy, he's doing the same, he's the security guard, who's always talking into this, and whatever. A lot of it is I don't really know. I mean, there are people who are there's an actor, I won't mention him because I won't mention him, but wildly ambitious. I mean, I have never in my life been around anybody where every breath of every day was in the furtherance of their ambitions. It was breathtaking. And this person succeeded greatly. Talented, absolutely talented, but I think that, it leads to kind of it leads to kind of an unbalanced life when you are that way. And I don't think people who are that way can't really control that. That's just how they're wired. I think a lot of this comes down to how you're wired. I mean, I interview people frequently to be in our studio, and I don't take everybody because I don't want to and I don't need to. So I don't know any other way to do it. I just say, hey, let's meet, or now it's kind of on Zoom, like we meet on Zoom, and tell me what you're after, and let's see if we're rowing the boat in the same direction. And if we're not, you won't hurt my feelings. So the people I have, in my circle of students and colleagues and clients are all people I've curated, let's say. And so I get, consistently, people will say, it's just an incredible group of people, just a remarkable group. I said, yeah, it is. Because I take the time to get to know them a little bit, and not everybody who wants in gets in exactly. So I forget the original question. What was your original question?
About desire being taught, but I love what you're saying here, and that not everybody that comes in to audit the class or be part of your class is a fit. How can you tell somebody really wants it?
I don't know how I can describe that, but the first thing I will do is I have two exercises I do with new students, and sometimes I do it when I'm meeting people to be involved in the studio. One is something that's standard, and one is something I made up. And the one that's standard is I'll say, show me something, whether you want to do it live or on Zoom or you've taped it. Show me something you're really good at. I want to say something that you're really good at, that you think this shows everything that I really want to show. And most actors have something like that in their back pocket, a piece they did in a play or a speech in a movie or something they did in a class that they think this kills. So that's what you can do. I want to see what you can do. Now, on the other hand, I want to see who you are. So I said, I want you to write something. And a lot of actors kind of roll their eyes. They don't like to write. But I said, I want to know what you know. I want to know what you know. What do you know? I want to know what you know about how you get up in the morning and how you like your coffee and traffic and your dog, and start every sentence with, this is what I know. I know that, boom, 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 boom. And I said, and don't edit it. Just write it. Stream of consciousness. I don't need to know anything you don't want anyone else to know. I don't need to know anybody's deepest, darkest secrets. This is not therapy. This is your worldview. I want to see your worldview, and I want to see what you can do. What you can do and who you are. Who you are always trumps the worldview in film and television. Personal identity, art form. It's maybe always been that way, but it's more that way now. How else do you explain certain actors? I use it in my TED Talk. I use Seth Rogen as an example, right? I mean, I think he's great, but he does that. He's the best Seth Rogen he could possibly be. And no one else does that. And because he has a worldview, because immediately when he comes into some sort of transaction in the scene, immediately how he's going to respond, because his worldview is so clear. Most actors don't have that, because we're trained to be somebody else. We're trained to be, you're applauded to be, oh, I didn't even see you there. I didn't recognize you. That's not what film and TV is about. And that was kind of the genesis of my deciding eventually that I was going to try to teach, was to sort of try to teach to that perspective, because I didn't see anybody else doing that.
And so when someone comes in and they do the writing exercise of this is what I know I like my coffee with cinnamon. I know that I like to wake up and check Twitter. If they seem reluctant to do that exercise, do you see that maybe there's not a willingness?
Yeah, sometimes. Or when we're back in person now. We were on Zoom for a couple of years, as I'm sure you know. And when we were in person before, it was like, first of all, you're coming in, you don't know anybody in this class. You're speaking about how you see the world around you in front of a room full of strangers out loud. That's risky. It's a little risky. That's why I say I don't want to know anything you don't want anyone else to know. I don't need to know. No one needs to know that. I just need to know how you see things, how you interact with the world around you. And so, yes, people will get, they're either like, they pull back from it, or they're trying to be clever and it's not really clever, or they find themselves getting caught up in it and getting emotional. Because, and I'll often say, now, did you learn anything about yourself that you didn't know before you did that? And some of them say, yeah, that was really interesting. Because we know these things, but to actually write them out and speak them is different. And that's the only time I do that. And it's tricky. It is tricky. And there's a whole, in all of training of artists, whether it's acting, music, there is a teacher-student relationship that's tricky. You know, the whole guru thing, which is very prominent, which I really abhor. So you have to be super careful, even more so today with our world today. You just have to be super careful that you're not leading them into territory they don't want to go into. And I make that very clear. And knock on wood, I've never really had anything that was like a train wreck with that exercise.
What about when one thinks they know themselves, but then they are in a room of strangers with something quite innocent revealing about themselves, no deep, dark secret, and the room shows them they're not who they thought they were? Does that happen?
That's not... I don't think it's ever happened like that. I used to also do an exercise, though, that might play into that idea. I would say, I haven't done this one for a long time. Somebody would walk up on stage, say their name, and I don't know, I would give them a sentence like, you know, hi, my name is Michael Laskin, I'm whatever. Give them something to say. And everybody would have to instantly write down 3 words. Like, what did you get from that? From that blink of an eye thing. It's that blink of an eye thing that is so... We have that in life. I mean, somebody comes to my door to deliver something, or a friend or a relative. We have an immediate human reaction to that person. It's the same thing on screen. It's exactly the same thing on screen. So when I started acting, when I started acting on film and television, I didn't understand that at all, and I was not good. I was not good initially. I really wasn't. I mean, I had to learn that it's a different thing entirely. And that began my education toward what I'm trying to teach now.